Okay.
Good morning and welcome to Center for Spiritual Living, Greater Boston, a place where souls are nurtured and lives are transformed through the living and practicing the principles of the science of mind philosophy founded by Dr. Ernest Holmes. My name is Reverend George Stewart. I prefer Rev G, and I am privileged to be your spiritual leader and founder of this organization, along with Reverend Ed Tansey. And I welcome all in the sanctuary today and all who are joining us on Facebook Live this morning. We are so grateful for everyone's attendance. We are located in beautiful Cambridge, Massachusetts at 50 Dudley Street. So those of you watching us on live stream, we welcome you to come in anytime because you're missing all the good music when you don't come in, right?
Yes.
Yeah, there you go. So, and we thank all who are financially sponsoring this live stream ministry. And if you have not had the opportunity yet to share in your donation to this organization, we would absolutely welcome that from you. You can just go to cslboston.org and click on the Donate tab, which is on the lower left-hand corner. We ask you that you open your heart and your wallet to support this amazing ministry, which is bringing a whole new idea into Boston. So, we are going through our theme of values-based living. These are the values of the Centers for Spiritual Living. And a big surprise today, I found something new. I actually found value-based spiritual living online. Look at that. Something different today. All right. And of course, this month is Love as Safety. And I always like to go into the organizational design model and get the full explanation of the definition for the month. And this is the full definition. Love as safety. We create a community-wide climate conducive to honest reflection and deep and direct communication. Isn't that important?
Yes.
Very important. So I really love that this month, that's what we're talking about. So today, what I want to talk about is undefended love. Undefended love. It was just so wonderful that you had that wonderful reading around unconditional love. It's the same basic idea. It's that idea of being undefended in our love. So today what I want to talk about is I want to talk about, I should love that. I want to talk about the perfect love of the one beloved. This is something we need to start with. Then I want to talk about how we forget about this love. Then I further want to talk about what we can do to get back to it. And then lastly, the results. What are the results of doing these steps? So that's what I want to cover today as we go through today's talk. So, we say here that we are individualized expressions of the one God. Is that not correct?
Yeah.
Correct.
And we further say that God is love, not just love, but unconditional, or in this case, undefended, or infinite love, right?
Yes.
It is the allness of love, more so than we know on our human level, except now times when we can get ourselves to that place, right? Because we do have those moments. That's what brings us here, because we want more of those moments, right? We want to have more of that. So, Emma Curtis Hopkins says, love is the good we are seeking. Love is the highest name of God, and love is the fulfillment of the law. Now, where do you think she got this idea of, this love is the highest name of God? Oh, that's right, the Bible. God is love. 1 John 4, verse 8. It's right there. And it's in so many of the teachings. It's not just in the Bible. It's in so many of the teachings that this divine energy, that this oneness, in the Sufis, and, Rumi so lovely talks about that immersion in the oneness of the divine in his poetry. So there's all of these different things for us to realize that God is indeed love. And now, if God is love, and we are individualizations of God, that must mean that we are made of this love. Would you agree?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. So, there's really no need to defend this fact, as it is irrefutable. It is the irrefutable fact of who we are. Yes, we forget. And we see in the world people who have forgotten who they are as love. We see that all around us all the time. So our place is to know where we are in this love and where we're going to stand in this love. So we are here to express this love of the divine, and that we are all that love in our being and our doing. So in our being and our doing, we need to be that love. Because the law is automatic. The law just automatically responds. But if I'm being the love, then what I'm putting into the law is the highest and best and greatest possibility. Is that not correct? Mm-hmm. So that's what it's about. We want to be in that process. So this thing I'm calling undefended love is about accepting and expressing this love without putting up our limited human personalities or burying it with our emotional baggage. Would you not agree that we bury our love in emotional baggage so often in our lives? We're constantly going at trying to make something happen rather than relaxing into it and letting the love just flow through us and as us. Because where's it coming from? Is it coming from outside?
No. Right.
No, it's coming from within. This divine love, this infinite love is coming from within. So it's important that we recognize that. So how did we forget about this love? That's our second point. How did we forget about this love? This is my take on it. I feel like when we chose to take on a body and leave the oneness that we had experienced previous to this, to come here. So we chose to take on this body. We forgot the oneness and knowing the love from within and start to become, I love this, domesticated in this dualistic reality called life. Everything in your life is dependent on something. When you are an infant, you're completely dependent. You're completely dependent upon your mother and your father or whatever parental influences in your life, and you start to think that love comes from outside. This is the beginning of the process of forgetting who we are. Is that life domesticates us into that position. That's my feeling. So we start to believe that love comes from outside of us. We start to think that something or someone outside of us loves us, or we must love them. Think about it. We start to think that someone outside of us must love us, or we must love them. So we forget that we are the love. And we don't need to be in that place. And when we're in that place, it's a much better process in our lives. So in this process of looking outside of ourselves for ways to give and receive love, and we just simply forget that we are it. We simply forget that. And that's powerful. We need to realize that. Ernest Holmes says, the wonderful person you are looking for really is the divinity hidden within you, God as you. You are looking for, wait a minute, what you are looking for, you are looking with. Think about that. What you are looking for, you're looking with. Because you are that divine love. So you're looking through that divine love into the world. So Ernest got this. Now he further said, and this is from the Science of Mind text, we arrive at a consciousness of unity only in such a degree as we see that what we are looking for, we are looking with, looking at. That's even more powerful. So that adds more to this up here. It adds that it's not only the fact that, that we're looking with it, but we are looking at it at the same time. Because are we not all expressions of God? Yes. Are we not all expressing this love and this light? So Ernest got this at such a deep level. And how many people, in just thinking about that, there was a part of you that kind of knew that, and yet life somehow swirled us off in our different directions. But how many of us kind of felt that? That there was something within us, right? Yeah. And that's what drew us to a teaching that said, wait a minute, this is the facts. It's not something out there. It's not limited. It's not you have to do this to get God's love. It's that you are God's love, which is so much better, so much more powerful. So, what I like to think that he's saying is that, we are the love, and once we realize this, we will find the same love reflecting back to us from our outer experience. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
That when I can be that reflection of love, that is going to reflect back to me. So that's the important thing. And I think love is an important thing to talk about right now with all that's going on in the world, with seeing people who have been so separated from that love that they believe that there's a reason. In Las Vegas, we have someone who has so separated himself from love that he doesn't even recognize humanity or the God in others. And that's so tragic. And yet we can't demonize this other person because of that loss of who they are, because each and every one of us in our lives at one point or another have either thought certain things that separated us from that love or believe certain things, and we find ourselves doing that all the time. So we have to remember, it's like, judge not. Because as soon as I judge something, I create it for myself. I create it as my reality. So it's very important not to get hooked up in that. It's so easy to do that. The media is constantly trying to demonize. Our administration is demonizing this individual. And I'm like, wait, this individual is simply lost. They're simply lost. Yes, they have caused a lot of pain. I absolutely agree with that, because pain is a part of human experience. We all know it. We've all been through it. But suffering is optional. As Ernest Holmes said, suffering is optional. So we can learn through these things. And this is our opportunity for forgiveness. I always find that the first thing I have to go to when those kinds of things happen in the world, after I go through whatever I need to go through to process it, is that I need to go to forgiveness. Because that's where I can start to see the humanity even in what appears inhumane in the world. So there's always that opportunity for us to grow into that greater place. So what can we do to get back to this love that we've forgotten? What can we do? Well, first we need to get our bloated nothingness out of the way, as Emerson so beautifully quotes. I always love people, like, the first time they hear that, they go, wow, what are they talking about? But it's really about getting that egoic self out of the way, that small ego self, the small s self, out of the way, and realizing that we are all that we're looking with, as Ernest Holmes tells us. So I remember the first time that I fell in love. Anybody remember the first time you fell in love? Oh my God, I felt like I had found something wonderful and I was a much better person because somebody loved me, right? How many men there, right? We still do that to ourselves every so often. We still find ourselves thinking that that's what the whole answer is. So it was that something outside of me that could affirm that I was worth loving, that I was worth loving, because I had forgotten that. And so my whole life became trying to find that. Of course, in my early days, I was looking for this in girls. And I continued to look here and there and finding all these lovely women who were just, I could get along with as friends so wonderfully. But it was dissatisfying. Oh, that's right, I was gay. Right? So I'm gay, so then I decided, well, let's do this with men, right? So I did that with men, but that proved to be dissatisfying as well. Why? Because I was looking outside of me for love. I was looking for someone or something to fulfill what it is that I was not fulfilling within myself. The love that was within me. So, but the beauty of that is that this journey led me to wanting to have a deeper understanding of what was going on. All the people that I drew into my life, the alcoholics, the whatever it was that I drew into my life, I drew them there so that I could choose a different journey. I really feel that. Because it guided me to a spiritual journey. It guided me to bring on looking deeper, growing more. Those people who hurt me, they brought something more for me to start looking within rather than looking without myself. So the journey began there. So it was beautiful. It was realizing that the disappointments were offering me the opportunity to grow in my spiritual journey. And so in this journey, I began to realize that I could only attract real love from my own wholeness. You so often, I hear this and it always frustrates me. It's like, oh, he or she completes me. Right? That's my other half, my better half, all of that. It's like, no. We can't be two halves coming together. Thank you. We can't be two halves coming together to make a whole. It doesn't work because I'm not complete within myself. And if I'm not complete within myself, I'm not ready to give the kind of love that needs to be brought into a relationship of wholeness. Because that's important. So I can no longer be a half a person looking for completion in another. I can no longer be that half a person looking for completion in someone else. I had to find my completion within and make that a part of my journey. So I did. I chose to make that a part of my journey. And that's when my journey for really looking for the real love that I desired started with me. I began my spiritual journey. And lo and behold, I realized as I continued that journey, I had to be vulnerable. Because what happened is, if I got hurt, I withdrew and I put up walls. Anybody done that? Yep. We got hurt, we put up those walls. And if I'm not vulnerable, I can't experience real love. I can't experience real love if I don't have a willingness to be vulnerable. It's very important to realize that. So think about it. We are only truly available when we are vulnerable. Would you just think about that for a second? Would you agree?
Yes.
That it is in our vulnerability that we can grow, and we can expand, and we can break down the limited ideas, and we can break down the walls that we've built against love. Because we tend to build walls against love because we've been hurt. So, Emma Curtis Hopkins says, whoever gets into the state of overflowing, unquenchable love is manifesting Christ. She sees no evil and rejoices at everything that occurs. She is a perfect creation of the living God and reflects the universe of good. Isn't that an awesome quote?
Absolutely.
That comes from her book that we study in the Christian mental practice, something like that. But anyway, it comes from her book, and it's one of the 12th lessons. But I just thought it was so awesome, and I had never realized, and I've read that book several times, that she refers to she.
Yes.
which is our Emma, right? She's referring to the divine feminine, right? Because she was truly a divine. That woman was truly a divine feminine. So that's why I found this lovely picture here, which I just thought, yes, if we're going to have the divine feminine, we need to have that wonderful sense of the feminine energy. But so we can call this energy, she calls it the Christ, but we can call this energy anything we want. We can call it the Buddha consciousness or the enlightened consciousness or whatever consciousness it is. It's about that enlightenment. It's about waking up the divinity within us. Waking up to that and realizing that it's always there. So to me, what she is saying here is that if we are in this enlightened state, there is no need for fear of being vulnerable. Would you agree? If I'm really doing my inner work, I can be vulnerable and know that even in my vulnerability, I am protected. Because that infinite energy, if I'm in that consciousness of love, and that's what I'm emoting in my life, and that's what's going out from me, then that's what's going to come back to me. yes, there's the possibility of hurt. But if I'm not willing to be hurt, sometimes I'm not willing to grow. Because we need to grow. And I think our hurt sometimes brings us to growth. Because we as humans like to be a little complacent sometimes. We like to kind of sit back and let life happen. But sometimes we have to get into life. And that's what the important thing. And that's when we grow. It's by working with each other. It's by moving in that place. So if I was not willing to be vulnerable, I would not be standing here in front of you today. Because it was willing to be vulnerable that brought me to where I am today. And we can all look at our lives and see how those things all tie together. So, I have been blessed in my life with 3 wonderful and powerful loves that each brought me amazing and powerful gifts, and that I was willing to be vulnerable in these relationships to personally grow. So it began as I started to do my spiritual journey, that I drew into my life someone that I had to first of all get past some outer human experiences to say, yes, I'm going to do this. And once I got past those outer human experiences, it was the time of the AIDS crisis, and this person was HIV positive. And I had to make that choice. So Dustin came into my life and brought me the gifts of this teaching, being a part of the Science of Mind movement and Unity, both of those. He was involved in both of them. But he also brought me the ability to realize that I could be loved unconditionally and trust love again. Because I had been horribly hurt in my life by women and by men. And it was like a time when I was ready to move forward and be trusting in that. And he brought that gift to me so that I was able to move on. And for whatever reason, his love was only here for a limited time for me, so he made his transition and he moved on. And so then the next thing that I was blessed with was Jose. And in my relationship with Jose, being vulnerable again, willing to love again, because after losing someone that you feel is like the love of your life, it's not always easy to move on. But I chose to move on, saying that I know that I am meant to have love in my life. I know because I am love, and I am the divine love, so I am worthy of being loved. But being the love to someone else as well. What the gifts I received from Jose was this amazing, not only the amazing love of a partner, but the love of a family. Because I went to Nicaragua and I married his sister and brought his sister and her niece to live with us in the United States. I brought that into my life. And the timing of all of that, I ended up becoming a father to a 15-year-old girl. As some people say, I was immersed in the hell of all of that transitional energy of a young woman. But Jose left. He chose to transition. Not that he chose, but he was transitioned at that time. He may have chosen. I don't know. But so here I was in a whole different new environment, learning how to be a stepfather, learning how to be a guiding person for his sister who didn't speak English, learning the language by immersion, but also learning a culture and growing in a culture. So it was a willingness to be vulnerable and to say that I have made a commitment, I stand by this commitment. And I did that for quite a long time. And then once she was grown up and things were good for their family, I moved on. And that's when I was really blessed with the most wonderful individual or beloved in my life, and that is Rev Ed. Because if I hadn't been willing to know that I could love again, that I had the love in me because I am the love of God, I would have never moved into another relationship. I would have never taken that opportunity. And I always say to Ed, it's like, well, we've had our conversation about this, but that he is not someone who completes me, but he adds to who I am, to who I show up as, to all that I am. So he adds to that. So it's there again, it's that whole idea of the two halves trying to make a whole, which doesn't work, but being whole, and he was whole. We had gone through our journeys in our own ways, and we're whole individuals ready to begin to create a whole new idea. And to be even more blessed with someone who is on the same spiritual journey as me, who at one point said, I want to be a minister too, which blew me out of the water. Then it blew him out of the water too. We know that. Yes, it blew Rabbit out of the water. He wasn't ready for that. He was like, oh God, you are kidding. Right? What?
My cosmos.
Yeah. But it was, it was the beauty of realizing that our connection was a love that came from that spiritual journey. A love that came from that willingness to do our personal work. Because you have to in relationship. Relationship shows up and has lots of things for us to work on. It comes to us. And so in relationship, we have to learn all of the wonderful things that we need to learn in order to grow into the fullness of who we are. But relationship reminds me where I don't have places that I'm whole. In relationship, I have places in me that are not whole, and it is in relationship that I'm reminded of those things, and that's where my work is. That's where I need to move into the world in a greater way. So I bless it. I bless it knowing it is all perfect and all good. But the thing about our relationship is it's the indwelling presence meeting the indwelling presence, or the namaste, is that we are constantly recognizing the divine in each other. And we have to always keep doing that. It's a job that we have to do, but it's a beautiful job. It's an exciting job. It's what I want to do. So there again, as I said, if I had not been willing to be vulnerable, I would not be here before you. I would not continue to love. I would not end up in New England from California. And I feel that that's such a blessing, because coming here, I have found a whole new love and more love than I ever imagined was possible. I didn't even know that that was a possibility, but I was willing to take the chance to realize that love was a possibility. So the most important thing to remember is that we all long in our own way for connection and intimacy. But we have to realize that this connection and intimacy is already existing within us. It's already there. Your connection and your intimacy are already a part of you. And when you can do that, when you can realize that, you open the possibilities into the greater good that is yours to have. So it is up to us to surrender all our outward surrogates, these relationships outside of us that we call truth, and realize and completely abandon ourselves into love. Completely abandon ourselves into love. And I want to just share this wonderful Sufi story. And it's the story of the moth and the flame. And I want to offer this as an illustration, and then I want to take a reading from Ernest Holmes that I think really talks about the same thing that the Sufi story is talking about. So one night, the moths gathered together, tormented by their longing to unite themselves with the candle. They all said, "We must find someone to give us news of that for which we so long, so earnestly for." So one of the moths then went to a castle and saw the light of the candle within. Upon returning, he reported what he saw. But the wise moth said, "He has no real information to give us about the candle." Then and another moth visited the castle. And he drew near to and touched the flame with his wings. He too came back and explained something of what union with the candle meant. But the wise moth said to him, "Your explanation is really worth no more than your comrades." The third moth rose up and threw himself violently into the candle's flame. As he entered completely into its embrace, his members became glowing red like the flame itself. The wise moth saw from afar that the candle had identified the moth with itself and had given the moth its light. He said, "This moth alone understands that to which he has attained. None other has it." And this is all. And God is calling.
Wow, that was timing.
Yeah.
Wow.
The one.
Well timed. That's the one.
Well timed.
It is the one. So I love this idea. That's immersing ourselves in that willingness to be vulnerable. You know, granted, I wouldn't want to be a moth. So Ernest Holmes says, and I love that this is very similar to the same idea. We do not dare to throw ourselves with abandonment into a seeming void. But if we did, we would find our feet planted firmly on a rock. For there is a place in the mentality, in the heights of its greatest realization, where it throws itself with complete abandonment into the very center of the universe. Think about that.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that powerful? It's the same idea as the Sufi story is essentially talking about.
Mm-hmm.
He goes on to say, there is a point in the supreme moment of realization where the individual merges with the universe, but not to the loss of his individuality.
Mm-hmm.
Where a sense of the oneness of all life so enters his being that there is no sense of otherness. That's big. There's no sense of otherness. It is here that the mentality performs seeming miracles because there is nothing to hinder the whole from coming through. Think about it. There's nothing to hinder the whole, notice how he capitalized it, from coming through. Coming from the wholeness, coming from our wholeness, we are able to be the light in the world that we're meant to be, the love in the world that we're meant to be. And it's by really being, and I love how he talks about here, that, you know, it's like throwing ourselves with a complete abandonment, and if we did, I love that, because he says you don't have to, but if you did, you'll find that your feet are firmly planted on a rock. That's powerful. Ernest was so deep. He was so deep in these understandings that he just realized at a whole different level that the oneness that we're talking about does require us to come from wholeness, us to be willing to be vulnerable, us to do all of these things that open opportunities for ever greater good in our lives. I can't experience the good if I'm going to be afraid, right? Because what am I doing with fear? Building more fear, right? And I always love what Ernest Holmes said, and that's that, you know, fear is faith misplaced. And it's so true. Fear is faith misplaced. I'm putting my faith in the fear, and I'm not putting my faith in the truth of the good that is mine to be. So the result of all of this, or in conclusion, as we recognize the inner divine love, or the beloved, by doing our spiritual practices and remembering our oneness with love, we no longer need to try to acquire or control love, which is a consciousness of lack. Do you agree? If I'm trying to control love, or I'm trying to acquire love, then it's coming from a place of lack. It's something that I don't have. So I have to come from a place of fullness and wholeness. So we then recognize the divine love that resides in ourselves, and in our partners, and in our friends, and in our family members, and even strangers. Because if I'm realizing the love within myself, I'm realizing the love in all around me. And when I find myself not recognizing the love around me, I need to stop, and I need to move within. And I need to go back to center and realize that I am the love. Even if I just have to repeat it to myself, I am the love, I am the love, I am the love. And then I can move into the world again. Because the world does test us. It can be a big test to us. So this is what reveals the true love that is so safe and so powerful and so wonderful, it needs no defending. Namaste.
Namaste.
So our affirmation today: I open my heart to let love in, only to discover that within my heart is the place love calls home. Let's do that again together. I open my heart to let love in, only to discover that within my heart is the place love calls home. That comes to us from Reverend Alice Reed, the senior minister at Center for Spiritual Living, Central Maryland. We thank her for that wonderful affirmation. So if you'll join with me in prayer. So just taking a moment to move within. Taking a deep breath to reactivate the life force of the body. Knowing that it is not us breathing, but it is the divine breathing us. And so from this place, here is what I know. I know that there is one infinite universal source, one creative substance, one universal good, one absolute peace and love and joy and light that is in and as and through all things, for it is the source and the substance and the creative energy of the universe that I call the Mother, Father, God, but answers to so many names. It is in and as and through all of its creation, for it is the very source and the very substance and the very energy that is creating this energy that is called life. I recognize and I realize right here and right now that there is no place I can go but into this oneness. Recognizing this oneness as my truth, for I am made up of all that the divine energy is. That this Mother, Father, God is every cell of my being, is the very breath I breathe. It is all of this and more. And as I recognize this for myself, I recognize that for each one in this room, for each one who is watching this live stream, and for all throughout the cosmos, for I recognize and I realize that as I know oneness, I open the opportunity for all to move into that place of oneness. I open the space of absolute love. And in this opening of that space of absolute love, I call forth right here and right now the divine miracle within each one. The divine miracle of realizing where the love is truly existent in the center of each being. And then as I call forth this love, that this energy continues to expand. This love continues to open up and unfold into ever greater good. That no matter what the outer appearance may be, that this love dissolves all that is unlike itself. In each life here, I know that there are abundant, overflowing blessings of love right here and right now. I claim them, I declare them, I know it is true. I know that this is the divine reality. That love is the power that dissolves all that is unlike itself. And so I claim this love right here and right now in gratitude and thanksgiving, in a peace that passes all understanding, knowing that it is all done. That it is always the Mother, Father, God's good pleasure to give the kingdom right here and right now, and I claim that kingdom for each one. I declare that kingdom right here and right now. And and I surrender and I let go. I let this go into that infinite creative source, that universal substance, that law that is always taking form according to belief. And know that this law is creating and bringing forth this higher level of good, of love, of joy, of peace, of perfection and wholeness and abundant good to and as and through each life. For that's all it does. It makes it so. And so I release it completely, knowing it is done. And I say, blessed be, Amen, Ashe. And together we say,
And
So
so
it
it
is.
is.